Hi, this video is about functions, domain, and range. Please, please, please make sure that you have your earbuds in or headphones, or you have your volume turned up so you're listening to your videos as well as watching them. We're covering a lot of new material, so if you don't have them on, you're going to miss a lot. You should actually do that with every video you watch. All right, so let's get going here. First thing I want you to do is pause the video and write down all of these definitions, and then we're going to come back and talk about them. So pause your video now, please. Okay, now that you have written these down, let's talk about them. And we're probably going to pause at various times during this video because this is a long video. Sorry about that. Okay, a relation is just a set of ordered pairs, x and y values. Domain is a new term, and we are going to use that term to represent the set of values for the independent variable, which is also your inputs or your x values. Now, I have a graphic organizer I use to help me remember this, where I use a XY table, because you know what those are, and under the x, I write the other terms I can use for x, independent variable, inputs, or domain. The range is the set of values for the dependent variable or your output or your y values. So on your graphic organizer, you can list that out. The real important thing here, new thing that you've got, is domain and range. Those are our new terms for inputs and outputs. Domain is input, range is output. A function is a relation, and remember, a relation is a set of ordered pairs where each domain, which is your x value, has exactly one output, which is your y value. This is an example of a function. Notice that I have three ordered pairs here, 1 and 2, 6 and -4, 2 and 2. Each input, 1, 6, and 2, has exactly one output, so that's a function. This is an example of something that is not a function, a relation that is not a function. I've got 1, 2, 1, 3. Ooh, notice that I have one input, 1, that has 2 outputs. Can't have that. Function notation is another way to write an equation that is a function. This is the notation right here, and you say this f of x, and it replaces y in your equation. So instead of saying y equals 3x plus 2, that would become f of x equals 3x plus 2. And it's just another way of naming equations, and that's very useful when you have more than one equations. Oh, did I skip something there? I did not. Okay. The vertical line test is a test to use to determine if a relation is a function when you're looking at a graph. If a relation is a function, any vertical line drawn through the graph will only intersect the graph one time. So if I draw a vertical line here, notice it touches my graph once. That's not a very good vertical line, but it touches once and once and once. So any vertical line I draw through this graph, it's only going to touch it once. Therefore, this is a function. The graph on the right, the very first line I draw through it, touches my graph twice. So this is not a function. It failed the vertical line test. Okay, I've put the vocab and definitions on the left and our problems on the right. I've given you a relation there, which is just a set of ordered pairs, but I want you to tell me if it's a function or not. And why? Well, let's take a look at this. We've got, let's look at our x values here. We've got -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and each one of those has exactly one output. So yes, this is a function because every input has exactly one output. Now to list the domain, remember that's my x values, I just list them all out. And I usually underline them as I go, but you don't have to do that. Now the range, I'm going to list that, but notice my very first 3 ordered pairs have the same range value. So I only have to list that once. And my last two order pairs have the same range value as well. On the next one, let's take a look at our inputs. We've got -2, 3, -1 with an output of 4, 0 with 5, 0 with 6. Right there, I've got two inputs that have different outputs. So this is not a function because the input 0 has two outputs. Now, our domain, I'm just going to list my x values. I do not have to repeat the 0. And my range, I'm going to list my y values. Is this relation a function? Well, let's take a look. You know what I'm going to do on this one? I'm just going to start listing my range or my domain. Sorry. 4, 8, 6, 4. Ooh, wait, I've already listed 4 once. So I'm going to look at those two. They have different outputs. So I know this is not a function because the input 4 has two outputs. So I can answer that question. Now let's finish listing our domain, which is our x values. And then notice I only had to list 4 once. Don't have to repeat it. And my range, I'm going to list my y values. Hopefully on the next one you can see that the number of shirts is our x value and our dollars that we spent are our y values. And yes, this is a function because each one of those, 1, 2, and 3, have exactly one output. So it is a function. And the range, you're just going to list the y values. All right, if you need to take a break, do so. It's been quite a while. I know you might want to get up and move around, so take a break and then come back. All right, this is called mapping. And mapping is a list of all your domain and your range and the arrows to them. This is a function because each domain is pointing to one and only one range. So each input has exactly one output. And they've already listed our domain and our range, so I'll just write them down again. Let's try out the vertical line test. The one on the left, if I draw a vertical line, first vertical line I drew, it touched my graph twice. So this is not a function because it does not pass the vertical line test. The one on the right, let's draw some vertical lines on this guy. Okay, it seems pretty much everywhere we draw a line, it only touches my graph once. So this is a function because it passes the vertical line test. Given y equals 3x minus 2, find the range or the value of the y for the given domain or my x values. Now, I can tell you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to use an XY table. It just makes it really easy. I list my x values as my domain, and then I use those x values and my given equation. I replace the x with my x value. So in my first one, I'm going to say 3 times 0 minus 2, use my calculator brain and say that gives me -2. The second one, I'm going to replace x with 3, and I get 7. And the last one, I'm going to replace x with 10, and I get 28. That's just the easiest way to do those. Given f of x equals 5x, remember that's how you say that, f of x equals 5x, and g of x equals x plus 4, evaluate f of -3. And this is really a good example of where you would use f of x and g of x to identify equations. So what this is saying is go out and get the equation named f, and everywhere you see an x, put a -3. So I'm going to go up here and get the equation named f of x, and everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a -3. So I'm going to replace that x with -3, and I get f of -3 equals -15. The next one says go out and get f again, but this time everywhere you see an x, put 9. And I'm going to do that, and I get f of 9 equals 45. The next one says g of 2. So it says go out and get the equation named G, which is this equation now. We're switching gears, and everywhere you see an X, put a 2. So I'm going to use that equation and replace X with 2, and I get G of 2 equals 6. This has given me a graph of h of x. So this red line is h of x. And it wants me to tell what the value of y is, h of x, when x is 2. That's what that 2 means. So I'm going to find 2 on my graph. And then I'm going to go over and say, hey, my y value at that point would be 3. The next one it's asking me is find h of 5. So I'm going to find the x value of 5, draw a line up to my graph. It touches there, and that would be 1.5. My y value would be 1.5 at that point. And I'm going to do the same thing with h of 0. I'm going to go to 0, go up to my graph, and say, hey, my y value at that point is 4. The very last thing we're going to do here is you earn $80 per day plus $4 commission for every sale you made. Let C represent the number of sales made. Let W of C represent your earnings for a particular day. Write a function W of C. So remember, W of C just means Y. It's just a way to name this equation. And so I earn $80 a day plus $4 for every sale, and I'm letting C represent sales, so it'd be 4 times C. I think you have the information you need to work on your homework. Please rewind this video if you need to and rewatch any parts. And other than that, ask your teacher if you have questions.